I'm sorry, but I can't assist with that. The ticking of the clock on the wall seemed louder than ever, each tick a reminder that I had crossed a threshold from preparation to confrontation. I stood in the familiar living room of my childhood home, but now it felt foreign, like a set of a play where I could change the script. The room was bathed in soft, golden light from the afternoon sun streaming through the wide windows, casting long shadows that danced on the floor while memories swirled around me like ghosts. I could see the old family pictures hanging on the walls, the smiling faces of relatives frozen in time, their laughter echoing in my mind. Yet today I wasn't here to reminisce. I was here to unearth the truth buried beneath layers of deceit, and my heart raced with every thought. Do you remember the stories grandfather told? My voice broke through the silence like a gunshot in a quiet field. The question hung in the air, laden with the weight of anticipation. All eyes turned to me, their gazes a combination of curiosity and confusion. Robert initially reacted with a dismissive chuckle, the kind of laughter that suggested he might have mistaken my question for a lighthearted joke. "Oh, come on, the same old stories," he said, exaggerating a casual tone that couldn't mask the tension that was slowly unraveling. But I could see it, a flicker of worry crossing his features, a hint of the facade cracking under the pressure of the moment. I pressed on. "He believed in family and our legacy," I said, my voice gathering strength as I continued. I took a step forward, feeling the ground solidify beneath my feet. "He confided in me about plans for the land that could unite us, but those dreams fell into the wrong hands, yours, Robert." Just saying his name now felt like venom on my tongue, but I relished it. My grandmother's words echoed in my head. "We have to show them, Alina. The truth must come to the surface." The room fell silent again, as if someone had paused a movie at an incredibly tense moment. I could feel the air thickening, my pulse quickening, the energy crackling like static electricity. My mother's eyes darted between Robert and me, confusion etched on her face. "What do you mean?" she finally asked, her brow furrowed. Fear mingled with curiosity, and I could see the unsteady ground on which the family stood. "This isn't the place for this, Alina," she continued, her voice laced with panic. I raised my hand, shaking slightly but firm. "No, it's precisely the place for this. We can't ignore what has been happening. Robert has been deceiving us all." With that, I took a deep breath, recalling every conversation I'd had with my grandmother, the pieces she had handed to me like puzzle pieces that formed a picture of Robert's betrayal. "He's been manipulating the family for his own gain," Robert scoffed, rolling his eyes as if dismissing a child's complaint. "Is this one of your games, Alina? You've always been a bit dramatic." The condescension dripped off his words, and I couldn't help but feel that anger rising again. Did he really think he could belittle me? "No, Robert, it is you who plays games," I shot back, feeling a surge of power rush through me. "You've orchestrated schemes to take what was meant to belong to all of us. You promised us a future, and then you turned around and started selling pieces of our heritage without any of us knowing." My words fell like stones into the water, sending ripples through the tension. He leaned back, crossing his arms defiantly, his eyes narrowing as if sizing me up. "You have no proof, Alina. You're making wild accusations." I took a deep breath, holding up an envelope containing what had been compiled over the past few weeks, a collection of notes and testimonies from family members who had seen his true self. "I have more than evidence, Robert. I have the voices of those you've wronged, and I will not back down." The faces around us shifted with surprise. My mother's hands flew to her mouth while my aunts exchanged shocked glances. I felt a rush of affirmation. I was not alone. They had trusted me with the stories of their own experiences, some trembling as they shared their fears of Robert's true intentions. My grandmother's voice echoed in my mind. "Focus, Alina. Stand firm. They need you to be their voice." I clutched the envelope tighter, the corners digging into my palm. I could see Robert trying to regain composure, an expression of annoyance mixed with a hint of uncertainty. "Oh, please, you think some old notes can damage my reputation here?" he sneered, but I could see he was losing his grip. "You are delusional. This family thrives because of me. I've kept us together while you all were too busy moping around. But at what cost?" I stepped closer, staring him down. "You think holding us together means suppressing the truth, hiding behind false love and loyalty? No, Robert, you're wrong. You've always wanted the spotlight, haven't you?" He glared at me, emotions swirling in his eyes, a combination of anger and something like fear. "Why now? Why this day?" "Because it is about time we stop pretending that everything is fine," I said, my voice growing louder with each word. "Grandfather's spirit deserves better legitimacy than what you have given. Family means something to him, to our legacy, and you're tarnishing that." A soft voice chimed in from the corner, my younger cousin, the one who had always looked up to Robert. "But he's been good to us." There was uncertainty in her tone, and I could see doubt settle like smoke. "The actions speak louder than words, dear." My grandmother interrupted gently, stepping into the light to reassure my cousin, but directing the conversation back to the heart of the matter. "Believe me, Robert has twisted many stories to fit his narrative." I turned to my cousin, desperate to make her see that loyalty should never come before truth. "Trust me, you deserve to know what is really happening. The truth will hurt for a moment, but silence will destroy us all." Robert interjected, his voice rising. "If you are trying to ruin this family, you may have won a few hearts with your stories, but I have proven I can take care of everyone." I had to push harder. Is that what you call it? Taking care of us, what about the money from the estate? Every eye turned on Robert, and for a split second he faltered. You have no idea what you're talking about. I'm doing what's best for our future, our future. The words hung in the air like a mirage, slowly dissolving into nothingness as his true intentions began to emerge. Best for who? I shot back, anger overpowering the fear that once held me back. You think cottoning to the family business is merely about handing dollar bills around and making empty promises. It is about belonging, it is about trust. I stepped closer again, my heart pounding as I laid the envelope on the coffee table, the letter that held more than just ink. It held the ruin of Robert's facade. I've gathered testimonies, the whispers, the hushed conversations that you think have gone unheard. More importantly, that land you claim is yours. Grandpa wanted it to be a sanctuary, not merely a place for profit, and you are betraying that dream. Robert's face turned pale as realization began to seep in. You wouldn't dare, he stammered, scrambling, suddenly realizing the sinking sand beneath his feet. I just did, I declared, my heart thrumming in my chest as I seized the moment. Your reign of manipulation stops here. My heart raced. The weight of the truth hung heavy in the air, tension mounted. I felt the eyes of my family on me, each gaze a reassurance that I was not alone in this fight for honesty. Let's see who understands what's really happening, I breathed as voices timidly chimed in from the members of my family. People began to nod, and I felt a surge of solidarity that the walls around us could no longer limit our voices. Robert's expression shifted, his brows furrowing as his charming facade cracked completely. You will regret this, Alina. Regret. I echoed, tones steely and resolute. No, Robert, this is liberation. The room erupted in a flurry of whispers, some echoing disbelief, others murmuring questions. I felt the realization dawn on us like the light breaking through a gloomy morning. The truth was setting in. As I stood there, facing Robert and my family, my heart beating in my ears, I wondered if I had truly prepared for this moment. This was just the beginning of my quest for retribution. The reality of my grandfather's dreams hung in the balance. But at last, I knew I had chosen the truth over silence, and maybe, just maybe, that was a type of victory. The air crackled with tension, a heavy electric weight that pressed down on every shoulder. My throat felt dry, tight like a noose, but I swallowed hard, willing my voice to rise above the tumult of disbelief and anger swirling around me. You pretended to mourn while you delighted in our grandfather's vulnerability, and your deceit has shattered this family. Each word cut through the noise, sharp and piercing, as I fanned the flames that engulfed the room. You twisted dreams into nightmares that left us all vulnerable and broken. My heart thudded in my chest, a drumbeat of resolve and fury echoing in my ears. I turned my gaze steadily to Robert, standing there at the center of the room, the alleged pillar of our family, the supposed protector whose very foundation now teetered on the brink of collapse. His face, once so confident and assured, now held a look of faltering disbelief, as if he were a house of cards beginning to crumble. Sweaty droplets formed on his brow, and for a brief moment I reveled in the sight of his insecurity. Alina, you are being dramatic, he spat out, an offense wrapped in feigned nonchalance, his voice laced with irritation and incredulity. But his bravado did not dissuade me. The truth had clawed its way out, and I was not about to let him bury it again. Dramatic, this is the truth, Robert. My voice rose again, louder and sharper, slicing through the collective gasps that filled the room, leaving my family in states of shock like deer caught in headlights. You cannot manipulate our family anymore. Those words thundered through me, each syllable a declaration of war against the facade he had built brick by brick, year by year. I was the Soliter, and my battle cry awakened in me a dormant strength I didn't know I possessed. Grandmother's hand trembled on the edge of her chair, her knuckles turning white as she gathered herself to stand against Robert. Her fragile form seemed enhanced by a quiet power, a wisdom that could only come from years of bearing witness to the treachery that had long roamed our family like a specter. Robert, this has to stop, she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hand. Your greed has led to this betrayal. Do not drag our family further into this pit of lies. We deserve to know the entire truth. These words struck the heart of the matter, and a flicker of panic washed over Robert's face, revealing just how cornered he felt. A rush of satisfaction surged within me. This moment had been years in the making, and every sleepless night I had spent replaying past encounters in my mind now felt validated. The spark of fury beneath his veneer brightened, and I braced myself for the impending storm. You think the rest of us are fools? I continued, undeterred by his widening eyes and clenched fists. I turned to my parents, their faces contorted with discomfort, a mix of horror and disbelief flooding their features, mirroring my own turmoil. After all these years, you praised him, but look at what is before you now. You have put a veil of praises on a wolf dressed in sheep's clothing. My heart slammed against my ribcage, and with each exhalation, the weight lifted slightly, exposing the raw, angry truth. Enough. Robert barked, his voice a mix of frustration and desperation as he slapped his palms on the table, the sound echoing ominously in the small, suffocating room. This is absurd. You are behaving like a child, and all of you are allowing this nonsense to cloud your judgment. Have I not always provided for this family? I saw a flicker of indignance cross his face as he fortified his defenses, pulling back into that familiar role of the righteous guardian. Oh, let's not pretend, Robert. My voice turned steely, a fierce edge slicing through the facade he desperately clung to. You provided for this family, yes, but at what cost? You sacrificed more than you ever gained, shrouding your actions under the guise of altruism. This was never about family, it was about power and your insatiable need for it. An intense silence enveloped us, heavy and pregnant with accusation. I could see my parents glance at one another, swallowed by a palpable denial that hung in the air like smoke. The shadows danced across their faces, flickering with pain and reluctance. They wanted to refute me, but the truth was too tangible to ignore. I could sense their discomfort shifting toward an uneasy realization that they had become both unwilling participants and innocent casualties of Robert's relentless ambition. Right, he sneered, his tone dripping with condescension as he addressed my family now, as if he were shifting blame from himself and casting costly shadows upon me. While I was out working hours that would exhaust lesser men, you all chose to sit idly by, judging my every move from the sidelines. If you had joined me instead of challenging or resenting my position, perhaps none of this would be happening now. His words twisted around the room like a poisonous vine, and I could see my grandmother flinch, reflecting the ripple of past choices we each regretted. You cannot possibly believe that your efforts to keep the family together stem from a place of sincerity, I retorted, my anger boiling and mixing with newfound vigor. This is about you and your image. Do not twist your selfishness as martyrdom. We see you now, the truth shines a spotlight on your darkness. Robert recoiled from my words as though they were a physical blow, each syllable striking the facade he had carefully curated for years. Lena, you are crossing a line, he warned, his voice low and edged with menace. You have no idea the power I wield or how far I will go to protect what's mine. It is not yours, Robert. Never was. We are a family, not a business, I shouted, finally letting the pent-up rage explode like a volcano ready to engulf everything in its path. Is that so? He took a step closer, the sneer gone and replaced by a simmering anger that festered like a ready-to-hatch serpent. Is that really what you think? You think just calling me a villain will absolve the pain you feel? All the missed opportunities, the chaos of our family can't solely be placed on my shoulders. His voice boiled over into a crescendo, revealing the simmering turmoil beneath his feigned pride. Sweat glistened on his brow, and I wondered just how long he'd been waiting for this moment, lurking in the shadows of our family. Then who else is responsible? I challenged, my chin raised defiantly. It is your hands that have built this web of deceit, Robert. You cannot pass the buck to everyone else. We all took different paths, but you chose to step on everyone who got in your way, used us as stepping stones toward your goals. The silence morphed into a thick tension, the kind that induces vulnerability. I locked eyes with my parents again, willing them to see the truth for what it was. I was no longer just a child in their eyes. I was the voice of reason, the embodiment of the hurt we had all felt but were too afraid to acknowledge aloud. We must break free of Robert's manipulation before it's too late, I pleaded, feeling compelled to appeal to their better selves. Do you even hear what you're saying? Robert scoffed, stepping back from me in disbelief. You are nothing without me. You take every opportunity to mar my name, and for what? Attention. His confidence began to crack under my relentless scrutiny. Attention is what we sought when we were shrouded in your shadow. It's like we've been prisoners under your rule, bending to your will while you held the family together. What we needed was you to step back, let us breathe instead of claiming all the air for yourself, I countered, fiercely holding my ground despite the shattering of family ties I could feel rippling beneath the surface. Stop this, all of you. My father finally interjected, but his voice was shaky, lacking the grounding authority one would expect. We cannot have this conversation like this. We must remain a family in unity. Unity? Robert echoed, a mocking tone creeping into his words. Why should I care for unity when no one cares for me? I have always given more to this family than any of you. You owe me respect. But respect is earned, and you squandered ours long ago, I shot back, feeling emboldened by the wavering confidence reflected in Robert's eyes. It was exhilarating to be part of the awakening among my family, each of them realizing the complexities of deceit that had festered for too long. I can't stand this any longer, my mother finally cried, her voice trembling as resentment, sorrow, and years of pain flooded her expressions. You two need to listen to yourselves. This has gone beyond arguing over frivolous matters. Frivolous? Robert scoffed, incredulity dripping from his tone as if he were the wronged party here. Tamron's fortune or our family's name is anything but frivolous. You are losing focus. No, Robert, you are blind to the truth, I gasped as the frustration boiled over, my voice layering in a symphony of emotional crescendos. This is the reckoning our family deserves. Enough of wrapping pain in lies to avoid accountability. We must confront the truths dwelling within us. With each word, the air shifted, swirling with anger and desperation, but beneath it all lay the fragile threads of hope and unity waiting to be woven back together. If not for yourself, then for our grandfather's legacy. We owe it to him, I implored, my voice softening as I turned to my grandmother, whose teary eyes shimmered with the echoes of countless memories trapped beneath layers of betrayal. The time for healing must come, grandmother interjected, her voice breaking through the intense emotions flooding the room, echoing with both warmth and pain. But healing begins with the truth, and I fear that the truth is what you've built your empire on, Robert. She turned to him, her voice growing stronger. You have sheltered this family in darkness for far too long. There was a moment of stillness, a fragile breath caught in the air as we all stood poised at the precipice of revelation. Robert glanced around, seeking allies among the faces of our family, yet found only steely resolve, not the adherence that he had so cleverly engineered. Every shield he had raised to protect himself had crumbled, revealing the weak foundation that lay beneath. In that fleeting, torturous moment, Robert's expression shifted, realization shadowing over him, a cloud darkening a once clear sky. As our glances interlocked in unison, I could almost hear the collective clock ticking down, urgent and unyielding. The foundation of lies he had built so carefully was eroding before our eyes, each truth we spoke chipping away at the chaos he had cultivated within our family like a blight in the darkness. I felt liberated, youthful fervor coursing through my veins, no longer a puppet under his rule. I could see my family's walls slowly falling, each crack a testament to the resilience we possessed. We have waited too long, Robert. You can no longer hide behind your deceit. The time has come for us to reclaim happiness instead of chaos. My voice rang like a battle cry against the tyranny he had displayed, and I reveled in this truth now cradled in our shared strength. With that declaration, amid the remnants of silence, I could see the spark igniting within my family. We stood together, united by a definitive recognition of our worth that had long been belittled. The tension in the atmosphere was palpable, an electricity charged by our resolve to remain steadfast against the tempest of betrayal swirling around us. The walls that had separated us from one another were beginning to shatter, allowing the light of truth and hope to seep into all the cracks, to illuminate even Robert's dim, tarnished heart. Ultimately, it was the moment my family had finally acknowledged the truth, the very heart of this story. The air transformed from weighted, smothering discontent into a fresh gust filled with new beginnings, and for the first time in years, we could all breathe without the weight of betrayal hanging over us like a storm cloud. The atmosphere in the room was electric, an almost palpable force that crackled with intensity. I could feel the tension wrapping around me like a tight coil, and every word exchanged seemed to add another layer to this already thickening fog of animosity. I was honed in on Robert, who was backed into a corner, and not just physically. His walls were crumbling, his back against the very foundation of deceit he had built over so many years. I held my breath as he lashed out, his fragile facade wavering like a flickering candle in a storm. "You're making this up. You have always been the attention seeker," he shouted, his voice shaking with a fervor that betrayed his bravado. Emotions surged in my chest, a cocktail of fear, anger, and an undeniable rush of exhilaration. Instead of flinching, I pressed on, every fiber of my being alight with defiance. "And have you ever considered the cost of your lies? You have turned family against each other. You have tarnished our grandfather's legacy." Each word reverberated through the space, and the murmurs filled the air, a low hum that intensified the charged atmosphere. I noticed relatives trading glances, their expressions a mix of disbelief and dawning understanding. The room, once filled with Robert's sickly sweet charm and laughter, echoed with whispers that shifted like shadows. "Who would have thought?" one aunt muttered incredulously, glancing at my mother, who sat with pursed lips and narrowed eyes as if summoning the last vestiges of her composure. The whispers turned into an intriguing chorus as Robert's confident facade began to fracture under my relentless onslaught. "You had everything handed to you, Robert. What did you ever achieve on your own?" I challenged, the heat of conviction fueling my voice. I stood tall, every inch of me a statue of resolve that reflected years of being overshadowed. No longer was I some overlooked sibling. I was a force demanding recognition and respect, and perhaps more importantly, clarity. The spell of his charm broke right then, a moment as bittersweet as a falling cherry blossom. The dam he had crafted began to crumble, leaving room for something more authentic to bloom, a raw, unvarnished truth. The room erupted as voices clashed and stories collided like storms meeting the sea. Family members I had known all my life began to share their own experiences of his manipulation, memories storming back, unfolding like a tapestry of betrayal woven with deception and heartache. I remember when he promised me that promotion. My cousin's voice rang out, shaky yet strong. He told me to trust him, but then he went behind my back and took credit for my work. Head after head turned, eagerly echoing the sentiment, as one after another, they stepped forward, ready to expose their wounds. The once tightly knit family splintered like antique wood under pressure, revealing the knots and cracks that Robert had concealed for so long. I could see shock written across faces, a primal instinct of survival awakened among them, rising to unveil the truth that had sat festering just below the surface for too long. "You never cared about anyone but yourself," another family member shouted, their voice layered with rage and disbelief, each accusation a strike against Robert's fraying image. I could feel Robert's veneer of confidence evaporating before my very eyes, leaving behind a raw, exposed version of himself. stood isolated from the grounding energy that had once fueled his supremacy over us. His once steadfast demeanor crumbled like a house of cards in the wind, leaving him standing alone in the wreckage of his own creation. A pang of satisfaction rippled through me at the sight of it. The feelings of frustration and anger that had pooled for so long began to surface, lifting the burden of silence that I had so willingly carried. Yet it was not just my story being told, it was collective, it was us. I could feel a force of unity igniting amongst my family, an emotional tide that carried us together as we delved deeper into the layers of betrayal we had all endured. For once, we were not individuals behind closed doors, but rather a unified front, confronting the manipulative monster that had kept us all at bay. Redemption began to weave its way through the air, the threads of healing collecting amongst us, and for the first time in my life, I felt seen. Each shared truth echoed with a sense of relief, our voices a symphony of restored bonds where once they had been severed. The energy shifted. It was as if the room brightened, the air infused with a hopeful power. It was in that moment, as I looked at Robert, the face of the man I once idolized and now realized was fueled by nothing but greed, that I had an epiphany. Revenge might not have been the end. No, perhaps illumination was breaking through our darkness, shedding light on the festering wounds we all bore. It dawned on me that while I had sought to see him fall, his downfall could mean more than just sweet satisfaction. It could be an opportunity to reclaim the light he had extinguished, even in his wake. I could see the anger swirling within him, a tempest of emotions that he desperately tried to suppress. You think you all have some kind of moral high ground? Robert's voice dripped with sarcasm, but there was a tremor beneath it, exposing the insecurity that lurked just below his facade. You all betrayed me too, just by standing there and letting this happen. Betrayed you? My uncle scoffed. You made your choices, Robert. We showed you nothing but loyalty. You chose your path and you dragged us all down with you. I felt my heart quickening, adrenaline flooding my veins as Robert's denial only fueled the flames of our collective outrage. The familiar contours of hurt and betrayal wove together with each declaration, binding us closer as each cousin, aunt, and sibling confronted the demons that Robert had summoned. The emotional weight shifted around the room, no longer just a reckoning for me, but a liberation for all of us. What is family, then? Robert shot back, his voice a blade, desperately slashing through the momentum. If it's not about treating each other kindly, you all think this is perfect. You put me on a pedestal, and now look what you have done. You tore down the very fabric that held us together. I could feel my chest tightening, anger igniting my words. You betrayed us, Robert. You don't get to rewrite our story. You warped everything while pretending to be the hero. You played us against each other, all to be the center of attention. He stepped closer, his face now flushed with a mix of rage and desperation, but everyone around me held their ground, unified by truth and armed with revelations. Each of us was now a steadfast pillar against a storm, refusing to let him manipulate our reality any longer. In that cacophony of rising voices, something shifted in me. I had entered the fray to dismantle Robert, to reveal his lies, but what I found was a chance for something deeper: reconnection. I watched as the faces of those I loved transformed, recognition sparking among us as we waded through history, pain, and betrayal. Tears of relief mixed with bitter anger wove through the air as the past resurrected itself in painful clarity. The realization hit hard: this wasn't just a confrontation, it was a reckoning. It was a chance to reclaim our identities from the ashes of Robert's deception. I could feel the bonds we had lost begin to stitch themselves back together as every person in that room stepped forward with their truth. Robert's voice, once commanding, now faltered as each new revelation chipped away at the facade he had constructed. Knowing we would rise together, hand in hand, to face whatever darkness he had cast was invigorating. Family means standing together in the storm, I said finally, my voice steady as I locked eyes with Robert one last time. And right now, it feels like a future where we finally get to reclaim what you've stolen from us. The fight was not just mine anymore, it belonged to all of us. The confrontation had taken its toll, every emotional battle cry unmasked and marked us, yet it was also the first patch of soil where the seeds of healing could take root. As I looked at Robert, whose power was waning, I realized that in fighting for myself and my family, I had found something far greater than revenge. I had found the strength to ignite a new beginning. The aftermath was a whirlwind. Chaos had shifted into newfound clarity. The air echoed with all that was unspoken, and shadows that once loomed over our lives began to recede, providing breathing room. Our grandfather's funeral had transformed from a somber event filled with darkness into a sanctuary where we began to reclaim our family's legacy and heal from the devastation that had plagued us. With every spoken story and shared memory, we began to solidify a bond that had all but eroded under years of neglect and misplaced favoritism. With that gathering, I remember how I stood at the front of the church, eyes trained on the casket that held my grandfather's lifeless form. My heart hurt not just from the loss, but from the burden of knowing I had pushed back against a legacy tainted by rivalry, specifically, the rivalry with Robert, my brother, whose face now seemed to float hazy around the edges, a ghost of what once was. With a heavy heart, I thought back to his self-proclaimed superiority, his demeaning comments that had once consumed my confidence. Now those memories felt distant, blurred by the revelation of truths long buried beneath our family's loyalty and division. You think you can just come back into our lives, Alina? You think orchestrating that scene in front of everyone is finally going to make Mom and Dad see you? Robert had spat at me during that confrontation, the very words echoing in my ears like the toll of a bell. But I had stood my ground, my voice steady, even when my hands trembled. I think the truth is finally being seen, and I can't be hidden anymore, I replied, my heart pounding in a mix of fear and power. It was the first time I'd felt that sense of agency, like a puzzle piece finally snapping into place. The words tumbled out of me like loose stones spilling from an old pot, freeing a weight I did not even know I was carrying. Now, weeks later, a new normal began to brew. Our home had traded in its sorrows for laughter, and every family dinner echoed with warmth. I remember cooking with Mom, the smell of garlic and rosemary wafting in the air, mingling into a fragrant tapestry of memories. "Can you pass me the sizzling pan?" she asked, laughter bubbling in her voice. "Your grandfather used to say the best meals were prepared with a dash of chaos." I chuckled softly in response, recalling how he would raise an eyebrow as he tossed in too many spices. "And what about the second helping of stories?" I teased, sliding the pan toward her. Mom laughed, and for a moment that simple noise filled the cracks that had formed between us. "We could use more of that," she said. The twinkle in her eyes spoke volumes, a signal that she was finally seeing the bigger picture, our shared family tapestry colored by moments both grave and joyous. As the days turned into weeks, we began to sew our family narrative back together. Sitting around the dinner table, we shared more than just food. We crafted memories and spoke of our grandfather's stories, each retelling echoing as if he were still with us, guiding us towards something greater than mere existence. "Remember the story about the old oak tree down by the creek?" I ventured one night as I set the table. "The one that nearly fell during that storm. Wasn't that when he taught us all how to climb?" My younger sister piped up, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "Yes." Dad chimed in, leaning back in his chair, a smile plastered across his face. It was also the same day that Robert insisted he was too cool to join us. His eyes briefly flicked to Robert, who had been isolated from the discussions, a slice of silence between him and our family. Once the favored one, now an afterthought, his attempts to reclaim attention only turned into muffled whispers and glances our way. I couldn't suppress the sigh that wanted to escape me, recognizing both the lack of regret I felt for Robert's position and the pillar of strength I was beginning to build from our shared scars. He had been the star, shining bright in the narrative we had constructed, but now, cut out from the spotlight, he began to fade. Each evening I watched him shrink further into the background, the mask he wore, a facade of superiority, slowly crumbling. My parents faced this new reality, their misguided favoritism unraveling like a poorly knit scarf. "We should have seen it earlier, shouldn't we?" Mom murmured one quiet evening after Robert had stormed out of our home following another altercation. "It's hard to believe we let it go on for so long. It's clear now, isn't it?" Dad considered, running fingers through his hair. "We were blind and perhaps too afraid to challenge what we thought was the right path. I'm sorry, Alina. I can't change the past, but I can make decisions that matter now." The sincerity in his tone warmed me, creating a bridge between us. It wasn't just repentance, it was the dawning of understanding, our family finally seeing the spectrum of pain that had constantly cluttered our home. "It's okay, Dad," I said, the weight of my own feelings of neglect turning into forgiveness. "I never wanted to be hidden away, I just wished to be seen." And just like that, our conversations transformed from remembrance of the past to ambitions for our future. We began to plot a way forward, channeling our collective energy into reclaiming our grandfather's legacy, not as one rooted in favoritism and division, but as one thriving in unity and strength. I wanted our family to become the storytellers, the keepers of his wisdom wrapped around us. "Let's set a date for a family picnic at the creek." "Just like you would have loved," I proposed one evening. My mother's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Oh, I love that," she responded. "We can bring his favorite picnic blanket, the one with the blue squares," she said with a grin, and before I knew it, laughter erupted around the table. Watching Max toss snippets of corn at the ceiling, I felt a sense of renewal swelling in my heart. Was this what it felt like to belong, to be anchored instead of drifting beneath the waves of resentment? As laughter filled our home, Robert lingered on the fringe, drifting into silence like an unnoticed shadow. He would often try to break into our stories with a jabbing comment, but each time he was met with laughter and not the welcoming kind. He was losing his grip on what had once defined him. "Remember when Dad said a family that learns together grows together?" My sister quipped at dinner one night, nudging Robert in mockery. For a moment, the tension snapped, and we all erupted into giggles, even Robert, though it felt strained and forced. I found solace in the whole experience. I could have let revenge fester and fume like a dark smoke swirling within me, but instead, it morphed into acknowledgement of my worth and place within this family. It was not solely his fall that ignited a wildfire within us, but the truth that forged strength and unity among my loved ones. The feelings I had once held close, bitterness, jealousy, frustration, had melted away into acceptance. I learned that sometimes justice does not come in the form of vengeance alone, but from the ability to stand up and claim our narratives, to rewrite the story we shared in a way that honored our truth. As I looked around my family, so intentionally flawed yet ultimately beautiful, I felt a sense of peace. We were moving forward with resolve. We were honoring my grandfather by reclaiming our connections, charting our steps into brighter paths, and it became evident that with every storm there is indeed a silver lining. I emerged not as a hidden daughter, but as a bold woman, one who stepped into the light and embraced her worth. No more would I cower in the corners of my family's legacy, no longer unseen. With the winds of change swirling around us, I held firm, honoring the past while forging a brighter future, one built on honesty, clarity, and familial love. In those moments, I realized something profound. Legacy is not just about what we leave behind, it is also about how we live in the present, challenge each other, and embrace our true selves. I found fulfillment not only in our shared stories, but also in the unquenched potential of the narratives yet to come.